Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala rasulullah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Parenting for Paradise, making your parenting an act of worship. I'm Catherine Jones, emotional and spiritual resilience mentor and coach and founder of Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy. And I'm really excited to be sharing this with you, the making your parenting an act of worship. It's the end of Ramadan and we have been under lockdown, and it has been exceptionally hard to really manage family, educating children, and worshipping Allah, and getting that Ramadan spirit happening in the home. And a lot of parents have been reaching out to me, finding themselves feeling really angry, frustrated, and challenged right now. So hopefully, inshallah, this will help you feel much inspired and hopeful that there's another way and an opportunity to do differently, inshallah. So today you'll discover why raising children is in fact an act of worship, examples how the Prophet ﷺ treated children and young people, what attributes you need to parent your children to earn the great reward of paradise, and how you can raise your children and make it an act of worship, inshallah. So you're in the right place if you have children. If you feel like you don't get to worship Allah the way you used to because of the demands of parenting, and at this stage also the demands of educating your children from home, those of you who are not homeschoolers but now found yourself in that role, subhanAllah, without your consent, it's a challenging time. If you find it challenging to remain patient and calm without losing it at your children, and this is something that's coming up over and over and over again, subhanAllah, at the moment. But before we get into it, why would you listen to me? Well, first of all, here are my 5 gifts from Allah and my endless sources of tests and opportunity to practice what I preach. So I have 5 children. They're now aged 9 through to 22, so these photos are a little bit old. And yes, there's a lot of challenges that come with them. They all still live at home with me, so I do have a house full of people, alhamdulillah. And alhamdulillah, once upon a time I was shouty mum, I was stressed out mum, and I really felt like everything was completely hopeless. But alhamdulillah, over time I have learned, I became a certified Parenting by Connection instructor, which gave me a lot of tools for parenting, which I share through Peaceful Parenting. I also did my graduate diploma of teaching and education, which required me to learn more about child development, understand, and I've done a lot of studies in neuroscience, so I understand the brain development of children. And I'm also a certified Inside Out Paradigm coach, so all my learning has really helped me become fun mum and really be more able to be connecting rather than shouting, with my children, alhamdulillah. So what I'm going to share with you today, inshallah, is going to help you see how important it is to take this journey, and also how you can take this journey to being that confident, calm, compassionate parent that you would like to be. So these are the common things that I hear. I can't read the Quran or pray like I used to. I totally hear you and understand that. I have the same problem. There's always someone saying, Ummi this, Ummi that, when I would like to be reading Quran or whatever, subhanAllah. I can't get a good night's sleep anymore. And, that's not just when you have babies or toddlers. Even with teens, you can get disturbed night's sleep, subhanAllah. I feel like my life is running around after everyone. Now, that's even more so now that we're in lockdown, right? And I'm always feeling bad for being shouty mum. And I hear this so much. Parents that are feeling bad because then they're struggling to hold their patience or struggling not to shout at their children, subhanAllah, and then feeling guilty afterwards. So we're going to look at all of that, inshallah. So why is raising children an act of worship? I want to answer a different question first. Why is it important to know that it is an act of worship? If we are finding ourselves, okay, I've got a few things I need to take off the screen here. I didn't even realize they were there. Hang on a minute. There's a few things I have on the screen here. There we go. That's better. All right. So why is raising children an act of worship? Why is it important to know that it's an act of worship? If we are feeling ourselves sacrificing our other forms of worship in order to parent our children, if we understand that it is also an act of worship, it's like we're shifting from one act of worship to another instead of sacrificing worship to parent our children. And that shift actually changes our attitude towards not being able to do what is the traditional acts of worship. So that's why it's important to understand that it is worship. So let's now tackle, confirming that it is in fact an act of worship. And the first first thing that I want us to go through is protect yourself and your families from a fire whose fuel is people and stones. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here that that we have a duty towards our family, and our children, of course, are part of our family, to teach them about Islam, to be a good role model to them, to help them have the knowledge and understanding they need so that, they, inshallah, will go to Jannah and not be a fuel for the fire, subhanAllah. And of course, our own selves as well, that if we are being a good example, inshallah, we won't be fuel for the fire as well. So we need to set that example, subhanAllah. So the Prophet ﷺ said, when a human being dies and his actions are cut off except for three things: continuous charity, beneficial knowledge, or good pious child that makes dua for him. So two of these really fit into our parenting. If we have instilled beneficial knowledge in our child, then inshallah they will teach their children or others. They will implement it in their life, and inshallah we will continue to get the reward of having instilled that knowledge in them or taught them that knowledge. And the other side of it is, if they're a good pious child and then they make dua for us, that we get the benefits of that dua. So again, in order for our child to be inclined towards that, we need to have a good relationship with them so that they will want to make dua for us when we're gone. So these things really show us that investing this effort in parenting our children is an investment into our akhirah, and anything that's an investment in our akhirah is an investment, is an act of worship, right? But this is the scary one. This is where it gets a little bit hard to swallow, but it's really, really important. The Prophet ﷺ said, there is no servant whom Allah makes responsible for a people, and he dies the day he dies while having cheated his people, except that Allah would make Jannah forbidden haram for him. So, subhanAllah, our people in this case are our children. How could we be cheating our children? Well, that's what we're going to cover in today's session, and that's why you really need to hang in here and listen through to the end, because there may be something that you haven't considered that makes this really important. We don't want to be investing so much into our family and our children only to realize that there was one thing we didn't get and none of it was accepted because Allah has forbidden Jannah to us. SubhanAllah. So hang in there while I tell you that shortly, because this is the scary one, SubhanAllah. So let's look at our child in the perspective of mind, body, and soul, and how parenting, how it looks in terms of the full child, a holistic approach, so to speak. So when it comes to the body, the physical needs of our children, we're all pretty good at that. Providing them shelter, clothing, food, drink, teaching them how to clean themselves, washing them, cleaning them, looking after all their physical needs. Generally speaking, most parents have that covered, right? Then when it comes to their soul, the fact that you are even interested in a topic that's Parenting for Paradise says to me that you are someone who cares about Islam and your practice of the deen. And so, inshallah, you're being a good role model for your children. So you are doing your bit in that regard. And most likely, either educating them yourself or sending them to Islamic school on the weekends or to an Islamic school during the week so that they get the education they need about the deen. And so we're pretty good, if we are conscious of Allah, in covering those aspects. And when it comes to intellectual growth, I've noticed that one of the things that I've seen amongst the Muslim cultures is that there is a high regard for education, and so a lot of thought is put into whether homeschooling the children or what school to send them to, and so we're very much focused on making sure they have a good education and therefore, inshallah, a good future in this dunya. The one I want to tackle, and the one that we are weak in, can be in the emotional needs of our children. And the key thing with emotional needs is if they're not met and our child isn't doing well emotionally, all the others actually are jeopardized. So it's very hard for a child to learn when they've got emotional things going on. Their physical, their body can be affected. So a child that's often having lots of tummy aches and headaches might be going through something emotionally, and it's coming out in terms of those physical reactions. And also, it's very hard for any of us to have a good connection with Allah and feel very spiritual when we're feeling quite emotional. So the emotional needs of our children are very important. And yet, this is an area where we're quite weak in. And this is the area I want to cover in our session today. So let's first look at the example of the Prophet ﷺ and how he was with children. The first thing is he was so encouraging. SubhanAllah. And there's lots of stories, but one that comes to mind is when Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu was walking home with his father after a gathering with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And before we even get into the rest of the story, we already see here that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged young people to gather with the men and learn and benefit by being amongst them. And yet we see in our ummah a disconnect in that regard where the kids are sort of pushed away, and it's like, oh, this is adult time and this is an adult gathering. SubhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ set a different example of making sure that they felt welcome and a part of the community and a part of the gathering. So Ibn Umar was talking to his father and saying how, the Prophet ﷺ asked this question about the tree, and the companions all said Allah and the Messenger knows best. And Ibn Umar said to his dad, I knew the answer. And Umar radiallahu anhu said, I would be, words to this effect, proud, had you spoken up. So you see how encouraging they were of the young people to have a voice, to participate, to be amongst the adults. I don't see that in our ummah as much, subhanAllah. And this is something that's so important, for our young people, so that they understand how it is to become an adult, right? And included in that is the responsibility that the Prophet ﷺ gave young people. Mu'adh ibn Jabal was sent to Yemen when he was only around the age of 17 or in his late teens to teach the Yemenis people about Islam, subhanAllah. And we hear a story of one young lad who led the army that had Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhum in them, and he was in his late teens as well. So the Prophet ﷺ didn't see any problem whatsoever in giving good, tough responsibilities for young people to really step into, and encourage them to, step into adulthood. And we're not doing that either. We're seeing them as incapable and not giving them the opportunity perhaps fearing that they'll make a mistake or something will go wrong, when in fact, isn't it through our own mistakes that we learned the best lessons, and that if we're supporting them and being there for them as their allies through these challenges or through these responsibilities, how much they can learn from that, subhanallah. And the playfulness of the Prophet ﷺ, he was playful with Aisha radiallahu anha, he was playful with the boy with the bird, he was playful with his grandsons when they crawled all over him when he tried to pray. And this example of playfulness, it's such a powerful way of parenting when you parent from a playful place. Children really engage with that, connect with that. You can even set limits and teach and do so many things through play. We don't have to be serious in order to bring up our children as good Muslims. In fact, I suspect, or my belief from my experience is, we can do an even better job from a playful perspective and in actually get more through to our children in a playful way than we ever can seriously. And also the Prophet ﷺ was very balanced in the way he approached children. So there was a time when a young boy was eating at the table with them, and he was eating from all over the plate. And the Prophet ﷺ, instead of reprimanding him or shaming him, embarrassing him, just said, taught everybody at the table a lesson at the same time. He said, when we eat, we say Bismillah, we eat with our right hand, and then we eat from what is with it in front of us. SubhanAllah. So he gave it as a lesson. So he was compassionate and balanced and thoughtful in his approach. And so this is the beautiful example we have of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how can we make our parenting an act of worship? These are the 3 steps. The first one is having our intention to be for the sake of Allah. The second one is to make sure that it is pleasing to Allah. And the third one is we need the knowledge of how would it be pleasing to Allah, or the knowledge of how it might be displeasing to Allah. So we make sure that we are doing it in a way that's pleasing to Allah. So let's look at intention. Very familiar hadith, I think, for most of us. Actions are according to intentions, and everyone will get what was intended. Whoever migrated with the intention for Allah and His Messenger, the migration will be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. And whoever migrates for worldly gain or to marry a woman, then his migration will be for the sake of whatever he migrated for. So let's look at that now from a parenting perspective, or reword it from a parenting perspective. Whoever parents their children with the intention for Allah and His Messenger, then the parenting will be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. But whoever is parenting their children for worldly gain, or to marry into a wealthy family, or to get status, or for our child to become this or that or the other, then our parenting will be for the sake of whatever we parented for. Cool, right? SubhanAllah. So the next step is make it pleasing to Allah. And this is where I'm going to challenge you, but I don't want you to run away when you feel challenged, because I'm going to share with you how you can do it differently, or how we can work on this. So this can be the hard part when we think about how we've been parenting our children and how it might not be pleasing to Allah. So the first thing is patience. Who is patient with their children? What I'm hearing over and over again from parents is they're really struggling with this, especially right now, with being patient with their children. Their children aren't listening. Their children are making mess. They're not doing the work they're meant to be doing. They won't get off devices. They won't go to bed. All of these complaints, and parents just being really, frustrated with it and finding it very, very hard to be patient. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who have believed, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the patient." Patience is a key attribute of us as a Muslim. We tend to apply it when we in our adult relationships and be more aware of how patient we are with other adults. But one of the things that we tend to neglect is our patience towards children. I call this adultism. that we kind of have this discrimination against children that they don't deserve as much patience as the adults deserve. When in fact, they actually deserve more. Well, I believe they do, because they're still developing. They're still immature. Their brains are not fully developed yet. They're still learning. And so they deserve extra patience for the difficulties, the challenges that they experience, because they're still learning, right? Which then kind of leads to the whole thing of don't be angry, because what happens when we lose our patience? We get angry and frustrated with them. And that anger, it looks like it's coming from their behavior, them not listening, them not doing what we want them to do, or they're failing at school, something's going on, and it just all feels like they're making us mad, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and those who restrain their anger and pardon men, and again, we're better at doing this with the adults, right? Biting our tongues, swallowing our our anger, and trying our best to be forgiving. But when it comes to the kids, it's like it can be out of our mouth, or our actions happening so quickly that we haven't been able to contain it, and all of our wrath is on our children, subhanAllah, in that moment. Which kind of leads me into the next one, which is about being just and fair. And we often look at this as being just between siblings. I'm looking at it from a different perspective today, and that is whether it is actually justice that we're yelling and screaming at our kids. Because, look at it this way. When we are stressed, maybe because we've got a bill that we're struggling to pay, or we're feeling angry and upset because we've just had an argument with someone, or we're feeling sad because we just got some sad news, or we started looking at what's happening in the world and we got stressed and anxious about coronavirus, or whatever is going on for us, and then our child does one small thing or doesn't listen to us once or something like that, and that's it, we lose it. Is that the child that created those feelings? Not really. There's a saying, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. And it kind of is. But the thing is that just and fair that the child should cop all of those feelings at them when they just did the smallest thing? I don't think so. And I don't think so because I know it's possible to turn that around and change it. If it wasn't possible to change it, then of course, it's not within our control, but we can do something about it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, be just. That is nearer to righteousness. So in fact, being just is an act of worship. And it's so important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he forbade oppression upon himself before he forbade it upon us. So fear Allah, it says, and fear Allah, right? Because this is the scary part. This is the bit where I was talking about in that hadith, where it says, if we have, not fulfilled our duty, and then Jannah could be forbidden to us, right? This is the bit, the scary bit. Because indeed Allah is acquainted with all that we do. Even if this is happening behind closed doors, Allah still knows. So the fact that I know that there is a way for us to turn this around, there's a way for us to be different, that's what makes this important for us to learn. If there was no other way, if it was just, that's how we're built as human beings and we don't have control over it or any say in it, then of course we're not being unjust, it's just the way we are. But it's not. It's coming from a misunderstanding, which I'll share with you in a minute. All right? So fear Allah and treat your children, small and grown, fairly with equal justice. And it just shows how important this is. The Prophet ﷺ also said, he who does not show mercy to our young ones or recognize the rights of our elders is not one of us. So it's very serious indeed that we need to be showing up fairly and justly and showing mercy to our children. But I get it, because I've been there myself, how hard that can be, because it doesn't feel like there is another way. It feels like it's just hits you bang, just like that, right? So that's why we need to know how we can turn this around. We need this knowledge. And I have so many of my students and myself who will testify that this actually makes all the difference. It's the missing link, how you can be patient and not be angry and remain just and fair. The how, inshallah. So let me share with you the core of this understanding, the inside-out paradigm understanding. We call it a subtractive psychology because it takes thinking off your mind. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm going to share with you how you can learn the rest later, but this will give you something to think about, something to take away from today, all right? So we have two choices of where our feelings come from. Understanding where those feelings are coming from is going to help us in those moments not to end up following those feelings into bad behavior or behavior that is not going to be pleasing to Allah. Because at the end of the day, we're not accountable for our feelings. We're accountable for our behavior, what we say and what we do. Okay? So something other than thought, like our children's behavior, creating our feelings, or thought in the moment, meaning our thinking that we're having about our children's behavior, create our feelings. Which way does it work? These are the two choices that we have, right? So the way it works is it's from thought in the moment. It's not actually your children at all. This is why the injustice is really unjust. Because it's not them that is creating our feelings. It's our thoughts about them that is creating our feelings. And we're acting upon those feelings against them when it wasn't them. It doesn't work that it's our children that are creating our feelings. This is a misunderstanding. So when we are saying to them, you drive me crazy, you make me so mad when you do that, I'm so frustrated because you won't listen to me, I'm very disappointed in you because you didn't do well at school, all of these things we are saying are not true. Our thoughts are what create those feelings, but we are now actually lying to our children by putting it back on them that they are responsible for the way we feel. And this isn't okay, because this is how we train them to then misunderstand how it works, so that they are then confused and they teach their children, and this is how it becomes a generational pattern of passing the buck on to the kids. But we can stop that right here. You have every possibility to do that, and it's through this understanding. I'm going to go through an example with you so that you can perhaps see this for what I mean. So my child not listening to me is driving me crazy. I hear this all the time. It's one of the biggest questions. How do I get my children to listen to me? Right? SubhanAllah. It's not your child not listening to you that's driving you crazy. It is the thinking, it's my thinking about my child not listening to me is causing me to feel angry. What are we talking about? The sorts of things that come to mind is my child's not thinking. They're meant to think, my child's not listening. They're meant to listen to me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they're meant to obey me. They should listen to me. I shouldn't have to say it 50 times for them to move. And that's disrespectful, and they're not being respectful to me as the parent. And how dare they not respect me? And we get further and further into that frustration. And next thing you know, we're screaming at them to move their butts, do whatever it is that we ask them to do in the first place. By the way, in peaceful parenting, I actually, teach much better ways of communicating with children. SubhanAllah. So we end up losing it because we are seeing it. We're putting a story around their behavior that's leading to us feeling frustrated, but it's not their behavior that's causing that. And I can challenge you, because I'm sure there are times when they haven't listened to you that it hasn't bothered you. And there is times when they haven't listened to you that it has. So if it was their behavior that was creating your feelings, then you would always have the same reaction, but you don't, do you? I can say that with confidence because I've been a parent for now 25 years, because I've got adult stepsons. So I've been a parent a long time now. I know how it works. And I know all the bad side of it too, because I've done it all myself too, right? I'm not talking about anything that I haven't done myself. So there's no judgment here. I'm just calling us out on it because it's so important. SubhanAllah. So before I move on, has this been helpful so far? Now, I'm not going to be able to, from where my screen is, probably see all your comments. But if you would like to share with me what you've taken away, what's been helpful, what's been interesting, what's been different, what's been scary, please share it in the comments. And after I'm done, I'm going to come and have a look and read all of those and acknowledge them all. I really want you to think about what you've taken away from this for two reasons. One, it helps me see whether what I was trying to get through to you landed the way I wanted it to. But secondly, it helps consolidate your learning. You're more likely to take action, change things, and do things differently when you actually think about, what did I take away from that session? It really is part of helping you learn. So share with me. Even if you're watching this as a recording, share with me. I want to hear what's come up for you, what you've noticed, what you've thought of as we've been going through this. So let's keep going. Are you keen to discover how you can parent your child without losing it at them? Do you want to learn how you can parent your children with confidence, compassion, and calm? Do either of those things excite you? Well, before I tell you about that, the solution is understanding the inside-out paradigm, the psychological paradigm, which is in the Peaceful Hearts program that I teach. It's a 10-week program that takes you step by step through this understanding, all the implications of it. What I taught you today is like just a drop in the ocean of what there is to learn that can change your life. And so that you can understand how life-changing this understanding is, I just want to share with you a little bit about what some of my students say about it, inshallah. So let's get this going.
It's just an automatic understanding that happens when we understand that our feelings are coming from thought in the moment at all times. That this helps us with showing up with neutrality, showing up with kindness, with compassion, with offering from a space of non-judgment. You don't need to understand why other people think the way they think in order to let go of your reaction to it. I love the energy and the pretty much instant change, positive change in our lives that come from internalizing that realization. My overall physical experience then changed. I felt happy. I felt, so my body felt good. I had showers. Wow, I'm moving really good. And then, then I look outside. Oh, wow, the sun's shining, the birds are chirping. Whereas, I don't know, it was all of a sudden like there was a lampshade taken off my head or something. I don't really know how to explain it.
That I've taken responsibility for my feelings and for the way I interact with others. It definitely increased my trust in Allah. Having an intimate relationship with Allah. That was something that I have missed, I think, for the first few years of being Muslim.
But now, peacefulness has been the one thing that has helped me with my own self, with my husband and my son and my family. It's helped bring that connection back, which, before, I don't know what would have happened.
It's like seeing a light. It's like seeing
It's like seeing all shades of yourself, like even the shadowy parts of yourself that you were never able to acknowledge or realize before.
What would they be missing out on if they didn't have this understanding? They're missing out on so much beauty that the world can give, so much love
That I'm always okay, even if there is chaos around me.
I want for somebody else what I've got for myself. We should always want for our brothers or our sisters what we have for ourselves. And that is that inner peace.
Whatever you think your problem is, the Inside Out paradigm is a game changer. The be all and end all, it's pretty awesome.
Okay, so I wanted you to see what my students think of the Inside Out paradigm. So it's not just me telling you this. It's very profound the way it changes your life and brings you to a state of inner peace, fearless confidence, total resilience, and effortless patience. And they're not an exaggeration when I say those things. So here's some of the things that they discovered when I taught them the Inside Out paradigm, which you can learn through the Peaceful Hearts program. The missing link, how your human experience really works, so you don't mistakenly believe it's your children who are driving you crazy. Not diving you crazy, driving you crazy, subhanAllah. Your internal guidance system, discover how you always have Allah on your side, guiding you through every challenge, including the curly parenting ones. So these days, when I get faced with a challenge, whether it's a parenting or other challenge, I don't freak out or feel worried about it, because I know that if I just peacefully reflect, Allah is going to guide me on how to get through it, because at the end of the day, everything is in Allah's hands, right? SubhanAllah. And we lose track of that when we get overwhelmed and our mind is so full of frantic thinking, we don't realize, or we can't see or hear how Allah is guiding us, and that becomes even worse, subhanAllah. Separate realities, the other dimension of relationships that can reset, revamp, rekindle, and even the most difficult relationships. And I just had one of my clients this week share with us in our group, subhanAllah. I might share it later on, inshallah, with her permission. But she used to feel that she and her husband had nothing in common, that they were like black and white or east and west. And recently something shifted in her understanding, and she was able to be really vulnerable with him and open up to him. And then in return, he did the same. And that every single day they've been getting closer and closer and really discovering their relationship in a very different way. This is after years and years and years of marriage. Like, they've got a 13, 14-year-old son. So this is not a young marriage. We're talking about a marriage where they haven't felt connection most of the time, and now that they're really we're not even rekindling, because it's like kindling it for the first time, subhanAllah. And that's what is so possible. I had a very difficult relationship with many family members, some that would be called bipolar narcissistic, or whatever different labels you want to call them. But subhanAllah, I don't feel those relationships as difficult anymore. I actually enjoy those relationships now, alhamdulillah. So that's also what's possible. Having the biggest aha moment of your life, when you totally get why you lose it off the hand, why you fly off the handle at your children, even at the smallest things. Like, just understanding that in itself is amazing, because I think that's where parents often are like, I don't get why they just do the smallest thing and that's it. I've completely lost it. It happens so quick. No chance I could stop it, right? So mastering emotions, which is really important. Banishing shouty mum or dad, if we've got dads listening, forever, as you step into being as cool as a cucumber, even when chaos and craziness reigns your world. So the chaos and the craziness haven't gone away in this household. I tell you, we have dramas, a lot of dramas. But I'm not shouty mum all the time. Occasionally I'll lose it, but my kids actually understand now and they don't take it personally and it's not really affecting them. And if it does, I know what to do about that to fix it, because I appreciate the damage I'm doing if I do that. But the majority of the time, the chaos doesn't cause my crazy anymore. I'm actually able to be quite cool, alhamdulillah. The respectful and loving way to stop unacceptable behavior, and that's with adults as well. So setting limits in a really compassionate and calm and confident way, right? Turning bad behavior into an opportunity to heal and build your child's intelligence. So not just stopping the bad behavior, but turning it into opportunity without screaming, bribing, begging, or any other demeaning responses you've tried in the past. And we try them all. I have tried them all. Before I understood this, I tried everything. SubhanAllah. And how fun-loving and connecting you are able to be despite all the tough challenges of parenting. And this is so important. I already shared with you how playful the Prophet ﷺ was. And I can tell you right now, being a playful parent is so much more powerful than being a serious parent. You can change their world and your world through being a playful parent, inshallah. You'll become the best coach and guide for your child when you can help them overcome their fears through this powerful understanding of our human experience. So our children go through lots of challenges. When they're little, it's, they're learning to sleep in their own room, separating from us to go to school. As they get older, it might be bullying at school, all sorts of things that our children go through. And we're able to step up and be their ally, subhanAllah. And so leave the training inspired, fulfilled, and ready to be the peaceful parent you've always dreamed to be, with confidence, compassion, and calm, inshallah. Plus, not only will you learn all of that in the program, you'll have the opportunity to have a Peaceful Heart one-on-one breakthrough session with me. This alone, it is gold, because I don't do many one-on-one sessions. I don't have a lot of time running a very busy business with the Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy and having 5 children. So this alone is worth the investment, subhanAllah. So what you get is the program, which I valued at $9.97, but I can tell you out there commercially, there are programs with far less that they're selling for more than $2,000. I'm just saying $9.97. It's a 10-week program, so that's just my value of a commercial value that it would be. Plus the $297 one-on-one session, we're talking about $1,294 value in what I have to offer today. But that is not what I generally offer it to you for. Usually it's $99, because I feel this is way too important for money to be a barrier for you to join. As you've seen, I've shown you how important it is that we learn to master our emotions when we're parenting our children, so that we are not actually being unjust towards them, so that we can actually make our parenting an act of worship. Since it's Ramadan, until the end of Ramadan, which is only a couple of days left now, subhanAllah, it's $49. It's a very small investment. All you have to do is go to heartsfindrest.com. That's it. Go there, check it out. $49 is not much to turn your life around. And honestly, sisters, talking to the sisters who have done the Peaceful Hearts program and nothing else, just the Peaceful Hearts program, they have had such amazing shifts in their life where things that used to stress them out and make them anxious, they just don't worry about anymore, to the extent that they're now comforting or coaching others who are stressing about it. And also, being able to be calm with their kids. Such changes, changes in their relationships with their husbands. So many shifts just in these 10 weeks, subhanAllah. And so it's possible for you. 10 modules of life-changing content and an amazing bonus, all valued at $1,294 at heartsfindrest.com. So in a moment, I am going to end here and go and check what your takeaways are and your questions are in Facebook. But before I do that, I'm going to answer some of the common questions I get. One is, can I join later? Absolutely. It'll be $99. This $49, it's kind of totally undervaluing the program, but I'm doing it on purpose. It's Ramadan. I want as many people to benefit as possible. That's the goal. And that's the only reason, not because it's not worth it, but because I want as many people as possible to be able to manage it. So that's, yes, you can join anytime, but if you want to join at $49, it's before the end of Ramadan, inshallah. Will you still have access to it after the 10 weeks? Absolutely. I don't take your access away. You can take your time. You'll get a module each week to go through. The reason it's weekly is because you need time to reflect and digest what you've learned each week. But if you don't manage to keep up with it, that's fine, because you've got, and as long as this system exists, you have access. Okay, alhamdulillah. What other questions do I get? It's pre-recorded, so you do it in your own time, so there's no issue about time zones. That's always an issue, because me being in Australia, it's never a convenient time with the rest of the world. So that's another advantage. You can do it in your own time. And yeah, then you have that time with me one-on-one and I usually encourage you to do that towards the end of the program when you've got the understanding that I teach, so that we can really tackle whatever challenge you want to tackle from the perspective of what you've learnt. So I usually encourage you to book that in once you're getting towards the end of the program. Unless something comes up earlier and you really need my help. So I think they're generally the questions that I get. Heartsfindrest.com. You've got a couple of days left. There's a timer on the form, so you'll be able on the page that you go to, so you'll be able to see how much time is left. Take advantage of it. Make it an Eid gift for yourself and your family. Isn't it an amazing gift for yourself and your family if you can stop losing it, if you stop shouting, if you feel more excited and happy about life, subhanAllah. That wouldn't be amazing, I would have thought. So heartsfindrest.com. Take advantage of this while you have the chance, inshallah. I'm going to conclude the live broadcast here, and then I'm going to pop across into Facebook and just see what your comments are and answer them and communicate with you on the posts in Facebook, inshallah. I'll see you there. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.